Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of What's on My Desk. And today I'm going to show you that you can buy a gold Audemars Piguet Royal Oak for under $15,000 and a Rolex under $2,500 right after the intro. I often hear from you guys, Roman, I'm glad you're showing us these crazy expensive watches and things that we can't afford for the majority of the time. How about coming down to earth and showing us things that we can afford, within a specific price range? And never ever has anyone mentioned the word Audemars Piguet. I'm actually going to show you a gold Audemars Piguet under $15,000. Not only that, it's also going to be a Royal Oak. There are stainless steel Royal Oaks out there that people are paying way over $20,000. Well, if you search, you shall find. And often enough, I tell people, go back in time a bit. The Royal Oak has been made since 1972, and there are plenty of options out there if you want to save a dollar or two and yet still end up with an iconic watch, even a gold watch. Case in point, the reference 27530BA. This is a D serial power reserve dual time watch. There's a modern version of this watch being made today. It was made in a bigger 39mm case Royal Oak. This is a 36mm, and again, this being a D serial dates it back to early 90s to mid 90s. This is right around the time the original Beast Offshore came out, 1992, for the 20th anniversary. This was not made to commemorate anything. This was just a regular production Royal Oak. And at the time, again, 36mm was the norm. I've showed you numerous 36mm Royal Oaks out there. Yellow gold, older style AP deploying buckle. If you guys remember this deploying buckle, I actually like the older style deploying buckle, and the reason for that is because it mimics the bezel, right? Sort of, if you put two of these together, you would probably get the Royal Oak bezel, right? But again, still a deploying, still a crocodile strap. Don't ask me what this thing retailed for originally in the early 90s. I don't remember, nor am I going to pretend like I do. If I had to guess, it was around that $20,000 price range. This watch today we're selling for $14,995. And before I try to make this video as if I'm trying to sell you guys something, I had to throw that price out there and actually back it up. It is on our website for $14,995, hence under $15,000. And I ask yourself a question: how many Royal Oaks you know of out there under $15,000, let alone gold Royal Oaks? So the case in point I'm trying to make is that don't be discouraged. Oftentimes people get discouraged and saying, I really want an AP Royal Oak, but it's really not in my price range. I'm not in a position to do so. In order for me to do so, I will have to probably trade a bunch of my existing watches. So I'm just not even going to look at that, and I'm going to explore other options in that price range. Well, if you seek, you shall find, as they say. And this isn't the only example of some of the older Royal Oaks out there that are in, quote unquote, that affordable price range versus its modern counterparts. Again, this is a solid gold Royal Oak, and if you're out there looking for a current version of a Royal Oak and a 41mm on the bracelet, you're paying upwards of 50 grand. There are deals to be had out there, and not just with Royal Oaks. There are plenty of other brands out there. Whatever price range you're looking for, oftentimes you can go back in time a little bit and find yourself a deal within the budget that you want. If it's an AP that you're after and a Royal Oak that you're after, you don't necessarily have to have the latest and the greatest. And a 36mm size, which wears like a 38 in an Audemars Piguet, is not a small watch, because I know that's the first thing you guys are going to tell me. I discussed some of the oldies but goodies on one of the previous episodes where I showed the ones on a bracelet, the two-tone pieces, right? There was a moon phase, I think. It was a day date. And I think it may have been a power reserve as well. I don't remember exactly. Guess what? Those things are selling like hotcakes because they're trading around that $10,000 to $12,000 price range. And people are picking them up and they're enjoying them. At the end of the day, 41, 42, and 45 millimeters in an Audemars Piguet is going to be too big for most people out there. I'm going to throw this on my wrist, and I'm going to show you what this looks like on a wrist, just for argument's sake, just so you guys can see how this watch wears, and you tell me if this watch is too small or too big. Even though I tend to wear 42mm and 44mm, sometimes even 45, this is actually the perfect size for my average size wrist. And it looks great. And everybody's still going to know that you have an AP on your wrist, and nobody's going to know that this watch is 25 years old plus, because it looks like every other Royal Oak. I don't think they're going to be changing this iconic design anytime soon. Speaking of which, let's talk about what's on my wrist. If you want to talk about old watches, I got on an old day date. It's a 36mm diamond dial, yellow gold, just a nice old school president. I love old school presidents. Again, small 36mm size, they wear extremely comfortably. Just a cool old gold watch, if you ask me. Moving right along, and I mentioned to you a Rolex, right? A Rolex under 2,500. Roman, you must be talking about some old beat up Datejust. No, I mean, I'm talking about quite an old watch, but it is not a Datejust. This is what's called the Rolex Precision watch, model number 34.110. At a glance, this is not a Rolex from far, and you really have to look at it closer to actually even realize that this is a Rolex. This is not your typical Rolex, so it's not for somebody that's out there that's trying to show people that, hey, I am wearing a Rolex. This is for somebody that appreciates the brand, appreciates the history, and doesn't want to spend the money, let's say for a GMT, Submariner, or even a Datejust. Why is this watch special to me? Well, because it dates back to around the time I was born, 75. It's a manual wind movement. It's not a quartz watch, it's a manual wind movement. It's another small watch, I think it's either 34, maybe even 33 millimeters. And seemingly nothing special, but I know a lot of guys out there like the smaller vintage stuff. They like the clean look of a watch such as this, not just specifically Rolex. And I think the fact that this is indeed a Rolex makes it that much more special. So, you know, when you're out there wearing this watch, somebody says, what is that? And you say, that's a Rolex. Really, that's a Rolex? That's going to be the first question that you're asked. But why did I show you this? Again, much like the AP, I often talked about guys getting out there and wanting to buy a particular watch, a particular name, and Rolex is number one. And so there are Rolex options out there, such as these, such as this Precision watch, that will not break the bank. These things trade, depending on conditions, these things trade anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500. And this will put a Rolex on your wrist without breaking the bank, but at the same time will allow you to stay conservative and modest, where everybody doesn't point you to, oh, he's wearing a Rolex, he's wearing such as this. You can tell this is a Rolex from a mile away. I guess the next question is going to come, well, Roman, why is this thing trading so cheap? Well, because it's not as popular. It's pretty obvious. This is not an oyster case, right? Had this been a Datejust or a GMT or Submariner or anything from the stainless steel lineup of stuff that's trading at crazy pricing today, like the Batmans and the Batgirls and the Hulks and all those other superhero watches, superhero name watches out there, this is not a popular watch. And I don't know how many of them they made, but I would imagine not too many, because again, in those times, the production wasn't all that great. Remember, we were just getting over that quartz war times where, you know, everybody was making quartz watches, and this was still an affordable option back then in a non-quartz watch in comparison to some of the quartz pieces that came out there at really low prices and almost killed the Swiss watch industry. Moving right along, and I'm going to mix in a little bit of Q&A in this What's on My Desk, because I got a question via email from a gentleman named Prashant S. Love watching your videos on YouTube. I'm a big fan. Thank you. I'm from Mumbai, India, and would love to see you come visit us here someday. I would be the most happy to host you guys and show you around. It's on my bucket list, believe it or not. I do want to take a tour of India one of these days. My question to you, Roman, is about Chopard LUC. What are your views on this brand? And despite the fact that it has really good and exceptional workmanship, high horology, why doesn't it get enough recognition? To be honest with you, I'm glad, because I have picked up a few very elite pieces at unbelievable prices from the gray market. Also, I would love for you to someday do a video of Chopard LUC history and the beginnings, like how you have done with so many other brands. Shout out to Ian for the fantastic editing. He does give the videos the fun element to watch. Thanks on behalf of Ian, and thanks on behalf of myself. Well, I happen to have brought a couple of LUC pieces that I recently picked up onto this channel. And although I'm not going to go into a detailed history of Chopard watchmaking, but I will briefly talk about it and show you these pieces. The minute you mention Chopard to somebody, the first thing they think about is floating diamonds jewelry, right? And I've done various cool things with them, from regular circles to all kinds of animals, circus character, etc., etc. Chopard Happy Diamonds jewelry has become an extremely popular jewelry line within the Chopard lineup. It's relatively affordable to a lot of their high jewelry stuff, because Chopard does make necklaces upwards of $1 million to $2 million. Chopard also made one of the most expensive watches in the world, the ones with the multicolored diamonds. I'm sure Ian can pop that in. But let's talk about what is LUC. What does it stand for? It stands for Louis Ulysse Chopard. It's a tongue twister. Louis Ulysse. Wow, that's difficult to say. Louis Chopard, I won't say his middle name because it definitely is a tongue twister. He was a son of a farmer born in 1836. He was an artisan watchmaker, and at the age of 24, he quickly took Switzerland by storm, as they say. He was often talked about as someone that created works of art and has quickly found his ways into some of the most impressive places. And one of those places he landed to or managed to export his timepieces is the court of Russian Tsar Nicholas II. That was his claim to fame. So contrary to all belief, Chopard is not a jewelry brand first and foremost, but a horological powerhouse. How good was his horology per se? Well, this guy became the official provider for Tri-Federal and the Swiss Railway, which was a big deal at the time because there was a lot of competition out in the market. A lot of these historical watch companies were around when Chopard was doing this, but yet it was him that landed those contracts. He did a lot of traveling. Russia, the Baltics, Hungary, just to mention a few, and his watches have spread throughout Europe and they have become quite popular. And at the time, I think he also struck a bunch of deals with a lot of Scandinavian retailers that took his watches, but they branded them as their own. So it was a Chopard watch, but branded by whatever store names out there. After Louis passed away, his son Paul Louis took over the reins of the company in the early 1900s. I think it was 1915. He's the guy that relocated Chopard to Geneva. And then his son, whose name was Paul Andres, took over the company in 1943 during the war. Of course, times were super rough for any watch manufacturer, any business for that matter. And because any one of his siblings wanted to take over the business, this is when he considered selling it. It was around that time where a German gentleman by the name of Carl Schaffel III, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, was actually looking to develop his own jewelry and watch brand. The brand was called the Sheza or Sheha or something. I don't know if I have the right pronunciation. Of course, he didn't have the capacity nor the experience to make high-end movements. He was looking to acquire a Swiss watch manufacturer. He went to Switzerland. He traveled all over the place. Right before he was leaving, he actually received a call from Paul Andres Chopard. They met. It was love at first sight, so to speak. They struck the deal within like the first 30 minutes. In 1957, the young Carl married Karen Roof. Her father, Fritz Roof, was a dynamic entrepreneur, and he proved a key supporter of the young couple's success. Acquiring a manufacturer offered the goldsmith the opportunity to join the close circle of major Swiss manufacturers. It was really thanks to his commercial drive and passion for travel that he inherited from his father and grandfather. Carl was the guy that lifted Chopard from the bottom and eventually built an empire. And of course, as you know, Chopard is also one of the very few privately owned companies or Swiss watch manufacturers and jewelry manufacturers at that point that, again, is still privately owned. Right now, you have Carl's and Karen's children that are actively involved in the company to this day. So, brief history, hope that was brief enough. Let me show you some of the watches. And what I loved about your email, let me just go back to it real quick. Why doesn't it get enough recognition? To be honest with you, I'm glad about it because I picked up very few, very elite pieces at unbelievable prices from the great market. So let me show you a couple of pretty unbelievable LUC timepieces here. I have the LUC chronograph here. It's a certified chronometer, obviously. And another LUC watch here, which is an 8-day power reserve moon phase. Both watches are executed in white gold, one being an automatic and one being a manual wind. More to Prashant's comments, the chronograph retails for $37,650, which is extremely reasonable for a large size white gold chronograph and a certified chronometer with a date, right? The 8-day power reserve moon phase also retails in the high 30s, and both of these watches can be picked up under $10,000, as Prashant said. Again, there's deals to be had there on exceptionally well-made watches. The LUC movements are superb in my opinion. The history is there, the brand name is there. It's a continuous brand. Again, not something that took a break somewhere in between and all of a sudden showed up saying, oh, we've been around since 18-something or other, right? And it goes with the theme of what I talked about. Whether you're looking for a Royal Oak for an affordable price, whether you're looking for a name like Rolex to put on your wrist, but you only have a couple of grand to spend, or whether you're looking for a quality-made Swiss certified chronometer movement from a company with a lot of history, you're looking for complications, you're looking for a precious metal, but you don't want to spend the money. There's so many deals out there to be had. I always urge people to do one thing. Number one, buy what you like first and foremost, but also sometimes, sort of broaden your horizons and realize just how much stuff is out there and never get discouraged. Get out there, do your research. There's so many things out there that you can purchase to fulfill whatever goal you're trying to achieve. Again, whether it's a brand name, a particular popular model, or a complicated watch at a fraction of the cost. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. As always, remember to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber, share this video with your friends. This is what helps my channel grow. And I'll see you guys next week for more watch reviews and other videos.